Spring, 1868. The air above the Jordan Valley shimmered with heat. Dust drifted across the broken hills of ancient Palestine. A small expedition moved toward a mound called Tel Es-Sultan. Nothing about the place looked extraordinary at first. Just layers of pale earth, crumbling stone, silence. But one of the workers stopped digging. His shovel had struck something hard beneath the soil. Not bedrock, not loose rubble. A wall. And not just any wall. Massive stone blocks emerged from the earth, buried beneath thousands of years of sand and collapsed mud brick. The men brushed away the dust with trembling hands. The deeper they dug, the stranger the discovery became. The structure appeared impossibly old. Older than Roman ruins. Older than the pyramids of Egypt. If the dating was correct, this city existed before recorded civilization. The wall was built before metal tools, before written language. Humanity in this era still wandered in small hunter-gatherer tribes. So who built a fortified city here nearly 11,000 years ago? The mound of Jericho rises near a natural spring in the Jordan Valley. Even in ancient times, water meant survival. The oasis drew travelers and settlers into a harsh landscape. Beneath the burning sunlight lay layer after layer of forgotten occupation. Entire civilizations buried atop one another like pages in a sealed book. Early explorers believed the ruins belonged to biblical Jericho, the city associated with Joshua and the collapsing walls of Scripture. But the deeper archaeologists dug, the more confusing the site became. The lowest layers were unimaginably ancient. In the late 19th century, archaeology was still primitive. Excavators used picks, baskets, and crude measuring systems. Workers cut enormous trenches, sometimes destroying evidence. Yet Jericho began revealing secrets that overturned human history. German archaeologists Ernst Sellen and Karl Watzinger arrived. They uncovered defensive walls and massive stone foundations. Then came British archaeologist John Garstang in the 1930s. He believed he had found evidence of the biblical Jericho. For a moment, the world was captivated. Newspapers spoke of the oldest city on earth. But beneath the excitement, contradictions began appearing. The dates did not align. Walls seemed thousands of years older. Entire settlement layers existed before ancient Israel. Some argued Jericho was already abandoned during Joshua's time. Then, in the 1950s, British archaeologist Kathleen Kenyon arrived. She used precise stratigraphic analysis, studying soil layers. Every fragment of pottery, every shift in earth color. What she uncovered shocked the archaeological world. Jericho's earliest settlement dated back to around 9000 BCE, nearly 11,000 years ago. And what they found next defied all expectations. By the 1950s, Kathleen Kenyon's excavation trenches cut deep into the mound of Jericho. The site no longer resembled a simple biblical ruin. It had become something far stranger, an archive of vanished worlds. Layer after layer of civilization emerged beneath the desert soil. Stacked memories buried across thousands of years. Burned homes, stone foundations, collapsed towers, human remains, entire communities erased and rebuilt again and again in the exact same place. The deeper the archaeologists descended, the further they traveled backward through time. You begin to notice how unnatural it feels. Most ancient cities belonged to a single civilization or era. Jericho contained dozens. Each settlement rested directly atop the ruins of older inhabitants, forming an artificial hill nearly 20 meters high. Every generation buried the previous one without fully abandoning the oasis. It was as though people could never leave this place. Even when disaster struck, even when death came, the hidden truth of Jericho was not merely its age. It was continuity. Human beings kept returning here for over 10,000 years, surviving droughts, invasions, climate shifts, and societal collapse. Few places on Earth reveal such an unbroken thread of habitation. But survival alone did not explain the city's mysteries. One discovery disturbed researchers more than any other. The skulls. Inside several Neolithic homes, archaeologists uncovered human heads carefully separated from their bodies after death. The skulls were coated in plaster to recreate facial features. Cheekbones were molded by hand, noses rebuilt, cowrie shells inserted into empty eye sockets, creating haunting white stares that reflected torchlight inside the excavation pits. Some still showed traces of red pigment. It felt less like archaeology and more like intrusion. Kenyon described moments where workers uncovered rows of these reconstructed faces staring upward from beneath ancient floors. Ancestors preserved not in tombs, but inside family homes. Why? No one could answer with certainty. Some scholars believed the people of Jericho practiced ancestor worship. Others suggested the skulls symbolized ownership of land or lineage. Perhaps these people feared forgetting the dead, and perhaps memory itself held power. You step through the imagined streets of Neolithic Jericho. Mud brick houses cluster tightly together. Smoke drifts upward from hearth fires. Grain dries beneath the sun. Children move through narrow alleys while elders sit beside the spring. Then your eyes rise toward the massive stone tower dominating the settlement. Even today, archaeologists debate its true purpose. The tower stands attached to Jericho's earliest wall, built around 8000 BCE, nearly 9 meters tall. It required astonishing coordination for such an ancient society. Thousands of stones transported and stacked with no metal tools. No known ruling class, no written plans. Who organized such labor, and why? The traditional explanation claimed the wall protected inhabitants from enemies. Yet some archaeologists questioned whether organized warfare even existed on that scale so early. Others proposed environmental reasons. Perhaps the walls controlled dangerous water flow. Researchers later noticed something remarkable about its alignment with summer solstice shadows. The tower may have held astronomical significance, part observatory, part ritual monument. Prehistoric humans were not merely surviving. They were observing the heavens, tracking time, what truly happened at the dawn of civilization. For over a century, Jericho has stood at the center of archaeology's most uncomfortable debate. Not because the city failed to reveal its past, but because it revealed too much. Every new excavation challenged another accepted belief about human history. Dates shifted, timelines collapsed, theories about civilization's origins suddenly looked fragile. And nowhere was the conflict more intense than around the walls of Jericho. The question sounded simple. Did Joshua really destroy the city? It became one of the fiercest archaeological disputes of the 20th century. In the 1930s, British archaeologist John Garstang excavated the ancient mound. He uncovered collapsed mud brick walls, layers of ash, and signs of violent destruction. Jericho fell suddenly around the late Bronze Age, roughly matching the biblical timeline of Joshua's conquest. The discovery electrified historians and religious communities alike. For many, the fallen walls seemed to confirm scripture itself. But decades later, Kathleen Kenyon re-examined the site. She used more advanced dating methods and stricter excavation techniques. Her conclusion shocked the academic world. The city Joshua supposedly destroyed had fallen centuries earlier. Jericho may have been sparsely inhabited during Joshua's era. The famous walls tied to scripture appeared far older than expected. Suddenly, the narrative fractured. Some accused earlier excavators of letting religious expectation shape interpretation. Others argued Kenyon relied too heavily on incomplete pottery evidence. In the 1990s, Bryant Wood challenged Kenyon's chronology again. He proposed alternative dating supporting a late Bronze destruction. Even today, the argument remains unresolved. Jericho became more than an archaeological site. It became a battleground between history, faith, and interpretation itself. You begin to notice how strangely fragile ancient history can be. A single pottery fragment, one altered carbon date, entire civilizations shift across centuries. Archaeologists were reconstructing time itself from broken pieces. But the biblical controversy was only one layer of mystery. Why did Jericho emerge so early? Its oldest structures predate Mesopotamia and Egypt. Conventional models assumed civilization developed gradually. Yet Jericho appeared suddenly, walls already in place. Some proposed climate catastrophe accelerated social organization. The end of the Ice Age reshaped the Near East. Communities near reliable water gained survival advantages. Perhaps fear created civilization, not prosperity. People gathered behind walls not to display power, but to endure. Yet even that explanation failed to answer everything. The tower remained an anomaly. Its staircase ascended toward an enclosed upper chamber, but no evidence revealed what occurred there. Some suggested ceremonial gatherings tied to ancestor worship. Then came an unsettling possibility. The tower symbolized authority itself. Civilization may have begun in fragile oasis settlements like this. Night falls differently over Jericho. The heat withdraws slowly from the stones. Wind drifts across the Jordan Valley carrying dust through the broken ruins of Tel El Sultan. Beyond the excavation trenches, silence settles over one of the oldest inhabited landscapes on Earth. And beneath that silence, entire ages remain buried. Even after more than a century of excavation, large portions of ancient Jericho are still untouched. Vast sections of the mound remain sealed beneath layers of collapsed mud brick and compacted earth. Every generation of researchers arrives believing they are close to understanding the city. And every generation leaves with more questions. Because Jericho does not behave like a normal archaeological site. It behaves like a memory fragmented across thousands of years. You stand near the remains of the ancient tower as darkness spreads across the valley. The stones are rough beneath your hand, worn smooth by time older than nearly any written story. 11,000 years separate these walls from the modern world. Yet the people who built them still feel strangely close. They buried their dead beneath their homes. They watched the skies. They organized labor. They constructed monuments and raised walls around themselves long before the rise of kingdoms. And somehow they vanished. Not all at once, not dramatically like legends claim, but gradually through cycles of collapse and rebuilding. One civilization replaced another, again and again. The mystery is not why Jericho fell. The mystery is why it kept returning. Through droughts, invasions, earthquakes, and climate disasters, humans continually rebuilt this city around the same spring. Even when settlements collapsed entirely, people eventually came back. Something about this place drew them irresistibly across millennia. Water alone does not fully explain that kind of persistence. Some researchers believe Jericho became sacred long before recorded religion emerged. A ceremonial center tied to memory, ancestry, and cosmology. The plastered skulls found beneath homes hint at cultures deeply connected to their dead. Perhaps Jericho survived because it represented continuity itself. A place where humans first learned how to remain. Before cities, most humans moved constantly. But Jericho suggests a different turning point, the moment humanity chose permanence. Once people settle, everything changes. Territory matters. Ownership emerges. Social hierarchy develops. Walls rise. Rituals solidify. Civilization begins. Modern technology has revealed anomalies hidden below unexcavated sections of the mound. Ground-penetrating radar suggests buried structures deeper than previously explored layers. Older settlements may exist beneath the known Neolithic city itself. Traces of occupation reaching even closer to the end of the Ice Age. Human civilization may be older than current models allow. How much of early human history has simply disappeared? Mud brick dissolves. Wood rots. Oral traditions fade. Entire cultures vanish without leaving written records. Jericho survived because its repeated rebuilding created a protective mound. How many other early settlements vanished completely? What truly happened to the walls? History becomes myth. Myth becomes memory. Memory becomes stone. Beneath the ancient soil of Jericho, untouched chambers remain sealed in darkness, waiting